Welcome to the Building with Metal podcast, presented by McElroy Metal. Whether you're a contractor, architect, designer, or building owner, we're here to help you build better with metal roofing and siding products.
Hello. Today on Building with Metal, we're going behind the scenes of digital marketing. Whether you're a contractor, architect, or building owner, your online presence matters more than ever. And to help us understand how it all works, we're joined today by our very own marketing and SEO consultant, Todd Hockenberry. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Thanks for having me on the show, Kathy. Pleasure to be here.
We're excited to have you join us. So let's get started. You've been at marketing a long time. How long has it been?
Too long. I started marketing back in the early 2000s, and before that I was in sales. So I've been around sales and marketing my whole career.
Gotcha. So how did you get started?
I was working for a small company, and this was early 2000s, and I was actually a part owner of it. And it was a turnaround. So we were kind of dead and dying, and we had not a lot of budgets, and our challenge was to turn this company around. And I started to embrace content, email marketing. Now, again, this was in the early 2000s, so this is before this was kind of just how you did things. So it was kind of new for a manufacturing company to worry about things like creating content and SEO, and it worked. We generated a ton of new business and new leads and turned the company around, and it still survives and thrives to today.
Well, that's awesome. So you ended up selling the company?
I left. I voluntarily chose to leave to take another job and cashed out my ownership stake.
So how long have we been working together at McElroy? I was trying to think about that the other day, and it seems like maybe 7 years.
7 years, yeah. It's been just about on the nose, 7 years, yep. Time flies.
So we've accomplished a ton in those 7 years, and I know personally you've had your finger on the button for most of it, and you've been a valuable partner from that standpoint. What do you think has been the best thing we've accomplished in those 7 years?
I think there's been a lot. I mean, clearly, McElroy embraced the principles and ideas around inbound marketing, which I think is critical. It really put the website at the top of your marketing pyramid, and it's become a really powerful resource. But I don't know, the kind of thing that's getting me excited now is the podcast, right? What we're doing right now. It's kind of a newer thing for McElroy. It's kind of pushing you out of your comfort zone a little bit, and but it's also going to lead us to, I believe, leveraging content in ways that are much more personal and personable for your audience. And we're already seeing contractors coming in because of the podcast. And I think it's really going to help you connect with your audience and deepen your relationship with your customers and help you attract more. Because again, I think it's about them and creating content and then sharing it across all different platforms, which you can do with the podcast. I think is a powerful way for you to move forward, and I'm excited you're doing it.
I think in the AI world, it's a way that we feel like we can still have human conversations is one of the reasons I'm really excited about it. So
Exactly.
So earlier, Todd, you mentioned inbound marketing. So in case we have some listeners today that aren't familiar with that term, kind of walk us through the basics, if you would.
Yeah, inbound marketing really started with the internet, and with a company named HubSpot coined that term. And the idea is that instead of interrupting people, you're attracting them. So think about you're watching television, an ad comes on, you're now interrupted. Or you're listening to the radio program and there's an ad, you're now interrupted. Or an email comes to you from a solicitation, that's an interruption, or a phone call. These are all kind of interruptive marketing, and inbound marketing is about being in the right places when people search for information and look for information, and then helping them and then attracting them to you naturally instead of interrupting them. So that's kind of the big mindset change. A lot of that's driven by content, obviously the internet, blogs, websites, social media. All of these things are tools and ways to do inbound marketing. In my mind, I always thought inbound marketing was more about your mindset, right? Is your mindset that you want to buy a list and spam people and hope a few of them come through? Or do you want to create something helpful and content that people actually want to consume and want to enjoy and learn from? And then they come to you naturally because you've helped them and you've done something nice for them and you've solved their problem or helped them move their opportunity forward or whatever it is. It's just a better mindset, I think, to be in as a marketer, as opposed to saying, I'm going to just buy an ad and hopefully 1 out of 1,000 clicks it.
I would agree. And as a marketer, I can tell you one is much more rewarding than the other, right? The inbound marketing is really fun to your point, to know you're helping people, but also the challenge of what kind of information do people want, and how do they want to consume it? And should it be an ebook or a blog post, or even now for us, a podcast? So I think it's a lot more fun and challenging way to do marketing. So speaking of fun and challenging in marketing, what about AI?
Oh, AI. Well, that's a big one. AI is, I was just reading about this. I was just talking about this with my kids, and then my kids are grown and they're in the workforce. And essentially, AI is making people dumber.
Well, that's not helpful.
The studies are showing that people are essentially outsourcing their thinking. So AI is good at a lot of things. And again, it can be good for, you were going to talk about marketing today, so let's just talk about marketing. You could put into ChatGPT, I'm a contractor and I want to sell in Dallas within a 100-mile radius. What are the best things I can do to market and get my people to find me? And you're going to get a decent answer. You're going to get probably 80% of the things you should be doing anyway as a business. What you won't get is the 20% that probably puts you over the top and makes you successful. What makes you unique? What makes you different? What makes you special? Because if everybody in Dallas is putting into AI, how do I market my company in Dallas? You're going to get all going to get the same answer. And if y'all do that, then you're all going to be boring and you're all going to be the same and you're not going to really get anywhere. So to me, the way to do it is use your brain first. Use your creativity and your imagination and your uniqueness as a business and come up with what makes you special. Then once you have that figured out, figure out who your best audience is, where they go for information, and then go to AI and say, here's our unique positioning. Here's our unique value. Here's our unique approach to roofing or siding or construction or whatever it is. And then use AI to maybe fill in the blanks. AI can help you build a great Google ad campaign, for example. I just said ads, but Google ads have a place in our world. They could also maybe help you do a good email outreach campaign. The idea, the impetus, what's different and special about you as a company, you alone can do that. Get that first and then use AI to help you fill in the blanks. That would be my advice. But AI is huge. It's going to impact virtually everything.
Yep, I would agree. And I know we use it some for outlines, and I find it really helpful for that. But let's talk about content creation. What are the Google gods saying these days? Is it good, bad, harmful, positive to let AI generate content?
Again, I would give you the same advice. I just worked on an article. We did one recently. We were talking about, it was a LinkedIn newsletter, and it had to do with statistics and some data about this year. This is going to be a good year for contractors. And we started with the premise. We outlined the idea, and then we had AI help us with that outline and fill in some blanks. Like what did we, I'll ask AI a question like this all the time about content. I'll say, here's some ideas, here's some content. What did I miss? What are 3 things I could add to this to make it better? Things like that. AI is pretty good at that. But if you don't have an idea to begin with, you're probably going to get something pretty average and pretty mediocre. And the search engines are going to show it, are going to reward it about the same, right? They're going to reward content. There's a technique to it, a structure that AI is looking for, but it also is looking for things that are cited, engaged with, followed. There needs to be other signals that you're an authority and you are expert at what you're talking about. So I don't think those things are going to change. It's always been that way a little bit with search and getting found online. Google was going to reward the content that people clicked on. That's a little dirty little secret with a lot of this. The person who has the number 1 ad or the number 1 search, organic search ranking on Google isn't always the one that gets the most traffic or pays the most money. It's the one that gets the most clicks, because they'd rather take less money for an ad that gets more clicks, because in the end, then they make more money. So it still has to be good, and it still has to be relevant and timely and educational and relevant to your audience. So you still have to be all those things.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I think, relevant content will always have a place. At least we hope that's the case. So earlier you mentioned search engine optimization. So let's talk a little bit about SEO. It's one of the things that we really lean heavily on for you in our relationship here at McElroy. But maybe let's start at the beginning in case we have some users that aren't familiar with it. So walk us through what it is and some of the techniques that you feel some of our contractors and architects could use to up their SEO game.
So SEO is search engine optimization. Essentially, it means getting Google to rank you highly so people find you. And there's local components to that, which is relevant to most contractors. So if somebody types in roofing contractor and you're in Dallas, you don't want the ones show up from Pittsburgh, right? You want Dallas roofing contractors. So again, there's a local aspect to it, but then there's also kind of the search intent, what people are really looking for. Does your content match that? So if you're just a local business, say you're a restaurant, right? You don't necessarily need to put your write articles about food. You just need to get optimized so that your Google location page is right, your hours are right, your information's right, your map's right. And then people are going to find you with those restaurants near me or pizza near me kind of searches. Contractors are similar. Optimizing is about getting your Google location page right. And that is the page that if you're on your phone and you search for a business, you see the map and it's got the pins. That's a thing. That's actually an account that you can control. And Google will find your business and create one for you. You have to take control of it and tell them that you're the owner of the company, or you own the company, or you are part of the company, and then you can control that and you can update it. And now you can make sure it's accurate. And that's kind of the biggest number one mistake we see people make is they don't do that. They don't get their Google location page and optimize it for their business so that when people are on that map and they're looking, they find you. That's the number one thing. But then, your website's the same, right? If you have a website, you want to optimize it and say, we've been talking about Dallas. So if I'm a Dallas roofing contractor, I'm going to make sure my website says Dallas, and it's also going to talk about the surrounding areas that I service. That's about optimizing. It's about thinking about your audience, what they search for, and then putting the content on your site and on your Google location page and making sure that it's current and updated and it matches what your customers are looking for.
So is the Google location page where I can find people's hours, is that the same page where they would change that?
Correct, yes.
All right, I'm familiar with that then. And then is there a cost? I've always wondered, does it cost to claim your page?
No fees. You just have to go to find your page, Google location page, and then there'll be a button there that says, do you own this page or own this page, something like that. You'll click that button and then just follow the process. And they have different ways they confirm you're the owner. It can be annoying. I will tell you that Google could be a little bit annoying with this, but go through the hoops, whatever they ask you to do to own it, so that you can then edit it. You can add photos to it, you can videos to it, update it. And then probably most importantly, when you get reviews, you can respond to them as the owner of the company. So if you get a good one, you can say thanks. If you get a bad one, you can say, hey, here's what happened. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. But you always want to answer those reviews. So you got to own the page to answer the reviews.
Yeah, that's a good point. A couple of things about reviews. Let's talk about that. So are they really important as a trust factor in consumers' buying decisions?
Absolutely. I could find tons of surveys that would show you that third-party proof is critical. Right? The Google location page is one. People will use Facebook, use things like Angie's List for contractors, maybe Yelp. Other ones like that are going to be used, and people will trust reviews, and they will trust, again, these third-party tools and places. And again, they'll ask their friends too if they can, but they're definitely going to use these third-party sites to understand who you are.
So out of curiosity, do you personally read reviews before you buy something?
I do. It's funny. I'm not a reviewer. I very
I was just
rarely
gonna ask
personally
that.
review, but I read them.
I very rarely submit one, but I do read them all the time.
And it was funny. I was in Key West a while back, and I reviewed a restaurant. And I gave them a negative review because I just thought they just didn't give good service. And the owner of the business called me. First of all, I was fairly impressed that he called me. He asked me what happened. I told him very honestly, I'm not going to change my review. That's the way I was treated, and that was my experience. I said, I just want you to know, as a business owner myself, you should know that this was my impression. And he thanked me for that, but I didn't change the review. So again, hopefully that's the point, right? That if you have good reviews, it's reinforcing your business. Again, if you have negative ones, right, learn what you got to learn, take your medicine and address it, and then move on. But again, people solicit reviews. You should. If you know somebody's happy that you did a good project, you should ask them, hey, would you go on our Google location page? LinkedIn's not bad either, and give us a review. And it should be just part of your normal conversation with customers.
So walk us through the mechanics. Once they've claimed their page and they get a review, are they notified, or do they constantly have to go into their page and check for reviews?
They'll set up notifications, and whoever owns the page, you can set up and say that person will get notified when there's a review. There's different settings. It's pretty easy to use. My experience is the hardest part is getting the ownership and just jumping through their hoops to make sure that you are officially the owner. It's not that bad, but they will make you go to get a phone call. I've had people be told they have to go outside and take a photo of their building with them standing next to it with the sign or something like that. I'm not kidding. You might get some weird ones like that, but whatever they ask you to do, you should do it so you can own it.
So SEO is really important. Claiming our page is really important. If we have any listeners today that are going to create content, whether it's a blog post or a ebook, how does SEO, or how should SEO enter into their thought process when they're creating content?
Think about what you're asked by customers or prospects. And if you are answering those questions and addressing those issues or concerns, I think that's your best bet for content, whether you're publishing on social media. Again, if you're going to have it on your website or your blog, I think that's the best content, right? What are the issues in my area that I'm addressing? How do we address them? Is there a new product coming out? Was weather came through, and this is the issue, right? Here's how you deal with a roof that's hail damaged or something like that. Again, I would not try to copy content that other people are doing. And again, you have to make a decision where you're at on the kind of doing all the marketing things. You may choose to start with content on social media first because it's more bite-sized and you can reach your local audience. Getting into writing articles and things is a little bit more extensive. I'm a big fan of videos for local contractors. I think people love to see videos of job sites, things go, before and after. The contractor sitting there answering questions or talking about their job. All these things are excellent content, and I think they're accessible because you can do it with your phone. Videos don't need to be 10 minutes long. They can be 90 seconds or less. But again, they give people a feel for who you are, what you do, and they can see it. Drone photos are popular too. We love seeing good up close, aerial photos of buildings with great new roofs on them. Those are all content. Those are the things that I think people want to consume, and they're relatively easy to produce. And then with just a little bit of work, you can leverage those on your social media channels, your email campaigns, and also on your website.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big things that a lot of people I see forget to do is if they get comments, they don't reply to them and thank people. So they're getting one-way engagement, but that two-way engagement is what really builds community on social. And so I think that's another big tip. What other mistakes do you see contractors and architects, small businesses really in general, make when they're trying to promote SEO and digital marketing?
I think it's like doing the easy stuff, right? Just get your have a clean, crisp web page, right? It shouldn't say copyright 2021 in the footer. We see things like that, right? It should be up to date. It should be with some current photos, right? Your truck should have a nice logo on it with a barcode, a scanner, like a 2D barcode that somebody could scan to get your information. Again, you just want to make it easy for people. Ask for referrals and references. I think for local businesses, that's huge. And again, you've done great work for clients and customers, and ask them, do you know anybody else in your neighborhood that needs a new roof or this work done? It's not a hard question to ask, but a lot of people don't do it. And those to me are the kind of basic blocking and tackling things you want to get right first. And then there's kind of more advanced marketing to do, but you want to get these basic things done first. And the contractors we've worked with, that's what we always tell them. Let's get the core basic stuff right first, and then build on it from there. And again, get the blocking and tackling done, get it right first, and then move on.
What would you say if one of our listeners said, I've been at this 20, 30, 40 years, maybe I'm second generation, I don't need to worry about SEO?
I would say, do you think anybody that wants to buy a roof uses the phone or the internet? And if the answer is yes, then you need to be thinking about these things. I mean, I guess you could build you probably do. I'm sure there's contractors out there that are small that survive on just knowing people in the neighborhood and referrals. And again, if that's enough, if that makes your business go, good for you. Don't do it unless you're committed to it and you want to grow your business, because the whole point of creating content, being online, social media, and all that stuff is to connect with people and have more opportunities. If you've got enough opportunities, then go for it, right? Stay with what you got. I'm not saying you shouldn't.
Exactly. Earlier you talked about inbound marketing, right? And I think to me, if you're going to do inbound marketing where you're actively trying to grow your business, then without a doubt, SEO is a lever you have to pull. To your point, if you're a referral-based business, then maybe not. It all depends also on what scale you want for your business.
Exactly.
Anything else on SEO that you think our listeners should know, Todd?
I would say the one thing is, the challenge is always people will say, well, I don't have time to create content. My argument is going to be, well, you create content all day long, you just don't see it as content. Every email you send to a prospect that answers the 3 questions they ask you, you have content. Take those answers you typed into that email, use ChatGPT from that point, create an article, create 5 social media posts about each one of those answers. You're creating content. So you're on a job site. You have a roof that's a before and after. Again, that's content. Just take pictures of it. So that to me is the transition when you understand that what you're doing is content, and then you just turn it into a habit. Again, that's the trick.
So you without a doubt have been a content fan. I know 7-8 years ago, my introductory call with you, I talked about how you would move us forward and what things you would want or expect from the McElroy team. And I give you credit. You made no bones about it that there was going to be a lot of content. We were going to have a schedule. We were going to stick to it. And for the most part, we've gotten that done and have had tremendous results. So I don't think you're obviously not wrong about that. Is there, at this point, and I'm probably subject to change, but do you have a favorite medium for content? A favorite type?
It's always dependent on the audience. If the audience is consuming it, then I want to do that, because that's what our job is to help clients do, is connect with their audience. So if we didn't think, for example, contractors and architects and people in the construction business would listen to podcasts, then we wouldn't recommend it, but we know they do. So that's why we recommend it. So my favorite is the one my clients, customers want to consume.
And that changes every day, right? Or it can change.
It can change. It usually expands once you adopt a certain type of content, building on your website. You want to blog and podcast, and you're adding another layer. You're not usually replacing when you're adding. Personally, I'm a huge fan of YouTube. I almost don't watch much TV anymore. I mean, there's much more interesting things out there. And like I talk to my kids, they don't watch the news. They're like, what's the news? Read the paper, Dad. Why would I do that? I watch YouTube. Okay.
Times they are changing. So speaking of changing times, we're kind of getting near the end here. I want to leave room for just a couple of features. The first is, what tips would you have for our contractors if you could give them 1 or 2 things to start moving the ball forward with their inbound digital marketing efforts? What would they be?
We talked about referrals a couple of times. I think communicating with your installed base and your existing customers is an underutilized tactic. That's a very easy one to do, right? Don't assume just because you put a roof on, especially a metal roof. I mean, it's supposed to last 50 or 60 years, right? I may not ever sell them another roof again, but don't assume that you can't talk to them, right? What if you did a campaign where you reached out to everybody, you put a roof on their house and said, is your roof leaking? Have you had any problems with your roof, right? And they're going to say, no, it's great. Say, well, really, you're really happy with your roof after a couple of years. How about anybody else in your neighborhood might want to use a roof? Right? Use that communication to kind of get feedback and have them let your customers be your best salespeople, right? Because they will be. Again, I would do the little things. Again, asking for referrals when you're in the neighborhood, put a sign out when you're doing a job. I see them all the time. I always notice if somebody puts a sign in the yard saying, XYZ Company's roofing is doing this job. And then my other one is I think you want to work with great partners. McElroy, if you work with McElroy has a program where we have a find a contractor map where we can list companies and they get leads. If people say, I'm in Dallas, here's the contractors in Dallas, I'm going to reach out to them and get leads. So work with partners that can help you, right? Your partners should help you grow your business. So work with partners that can really help you grow.
I think that's huge. McElroy has been really lucky in our 60 plus years to have some partners that have just really helped us propel and grow our business and really become much more than business partners, right? Okay, so it's time for you to get out your magic 8-ball. What should our contractors and architects expect to be different in their business 1 to 2 years from now?
Early on, we talked about AI, so I think that's got to be part of this. I got to believe the AI is going to be embedded in all the things that we're doing. I'm sure contractors see it in their business, whether it's doing proposals or using drone footage and AI to assess a roof's damage or do quotes. I mean, there's a lot of AI going to be embedded in, I think, all of what we do, probably in your internal systems, your financial systems. So I think we're going to have to deal with that, and you're going to have people that can understand how to use it and leverage it and not take over the human part, what makes you unique, but take over the automation part that can be automated and analysis too. AI is very good at analysis. So I think if AI is applied to marketing, we're going to be more efficient in marketing. The old cliche was I got 50% of my marketing budget's wasted. I just don't know which 50% it is, right? There's a cliche, right? Because you couldn't measure, are my trade shows effective? Are my ads effective? It's going to be very hyper-focused and very hyper-personal. Think about marketing as your Spotify or your Netflix. It's watching what you do, what you watch. It's watching your behavior, learning, and making better recommendations custom to you. What you get recommended on your Netflix is not what I get recommended. That's personalization. I think we're going to see companies, down to the level of a contractor, is going to be able to personalize their outreach and really tailor it to the individual person in their market that you're trying to reach. I think that's where AI will help us go. But I do think as more AI gets established, I do think the old school personal one-on-one marketing techniques are going to become more important because people will tire quickly of the automated chatbot response and dealing with an AI. I think they're going to yearn and long for more of those human connections. So the winners are going to be the people that balance the two, that use AI to leverage where they can, but never lose the human touch and stay personal and have a human or a unique value proposition for their work and in their community and be something a little different than everybody else. I was just going to say, because marketers ruin everything, because we know marketers are going to ruin AI and make it like miserable. I mean, just think about email. When you got your first emails 25 years ago, you were like, I got an email. This is great. Now you hate email, right? Because marketers ruin everything.
Yeah, we do tend to do that. Well, that's all the time we have for today, Todd. Thanks so much for joining us. I know I always appreciate your insight, and I'm sure our listeners did too. If anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best method for them to find you?
I'm pretty easy to find. Just Google Todd Hockenberry. My website's toddhockenberry.com. It's kind of spelled like it sounds. Love to connect with you on LinkedIn. You can find me there too. Always happy to talk to contractors or anybody that needs help with any of these topics.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day, Todd.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Building with Metal podcast, presented by McElroy Metal. To stay up to date with our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Visit us online at www.mcelroymetal.com for more info and products. Until next time, keep building with metal.